Okay, so a linear relationship is an equation whose graph is a line. One way to graph a linear equation is to make a table of ordered pairs. Slope of a line is k equals y over x, and k is the change in y over the change in x. And we've talked a lot about that, and we talked about changing the tables like from here to here. Then we would say, oh, it's going up 3, and we can find our equation that way. But what we're going to do is we're going to break down these graphs or these tables and how they go onto the graph, okay? So, for example, if we look at this first graph, okay, it's graphing this equation over here. It's graphing this equation over here, and then it's putting it in a table for us and showing it. So I'm going to show you how to look at the table. So this is our equation, y equals 3x plus 2. So they're saying that this is our input value. So input value and output value. So if I input my x, it will output my y, okay? So that being said, if I input -1 into this little formula here, so it'd be 3 times -1, which is -3. -3 plus 2 is -1. It gives me that. So my x value is -1, and then it output my y value is -1, so that's where they got the point here, okay? This is your x value and your y value. So same thing on the second one. They input 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. So if I input 0, I output 2. Okay, so that's how that works. Okay, so that's clear. Okay, so 0 value is here. 2 value is there. So that's where I'm getting my point from. Okay, if I input 1, 3 times 1 is 3. Plus 2 is 5. So I input 1 and I get 5. Okay, and then my last value is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. So if I input 2, I get 8. Okay, they took these 4 points right here and then graphed them over here. So they graphed -1, 1. And if you look, the y values are going up, going by 2s. The x values are going by 2. So we got to be real careful, okay, on our points. So -1, 1, -1, 1. There's that point. And they had already graphed it. We're making sure we're paying attention real close here, okay? Dalton. Okay, and then 0, 2. And then 1, 5, and 2, 8. And then they went ahead and graphed that line, right? Okay, so they did that based on a table, okay? What we've been doing is we've been talking about an equation, and we would have done the same thing, okay? But we would have taken it from the equation parts, and we would have said, okay, this is my slope. This is my y-intercept. Okay, and so like I really broke down today what y-intercept means, and so I just really need to be super clear about that. The y-intercept is where it crosses this y-axis at. So where does this line that we have here cross the y-axis? It crosses right here at 2. So that's where this number comes in, this 2 right here. So we really need to understand that concept. The y-intercept is where it crosses this axis right here. Okay, so they graphed that first point. So they graphed the 2. And then they use their slope, which is 3 over 1. So our m is 3 over 1. Our b is 2. So they said rise 1, 2, 3, and ran 1. Rise 1, 2, 3, and run 1. So they graphed that same line like we would have using the equation. Okay, they graphed it from a table, and they could plot it onto the graph. Okay, so that's how they did this. So let's create our own this next time. Okay, we're going to create our own table, and then we're going to graph it onto the graph. Okay, so next one, y equals x minus 2. So I'm going to plug in -1. So I'm going to say -1 minus 2. Right? -1 minus 2 is what?
It's -3.
-1 minus 2. How about Leave, change, which is negative, what he said? -3. How about -3? Okay. So, our point is -1, -3. You see where I got both points from? Okay. So, next time we're going to input 0. So, I'm going to say 0 minus 2. What is that? -2. So, my point would be what? 0, -2. Okay. My next point is 1. So we would say 1 minus 2. 1 minus 2 is -1. I can't take 2 away from 1 and leave 1. So my point's going to be 1, -1. And then my last point is 2 minus 2, which is, so my point would be 2 and 0. Okay, everybody seeing where I got those numbers?
Yes, ma'am.
Ian, you okay?
Kind of.
Okay. Okay, so let's keep going and then we'll see where we're at on the next one. Okay, so let's look at this one. So I'm going to graph these points. So I'm going to take -1, 3. So remember how we graph things on a coordinate grid. Remember we go right or left first, then up or down. So we're going to say -1, -3. And I'm going to put a point. I'm making those little slight dots. I'm just showing you, that's just me showing you where I'm going with my pen. Does that make sense? But those aren't actual dots. Are y'all good with that, me doing that? Yes. Okay. So my next point is 0, -2. So 0, -2. It's my next point.
1, -1.
Okay. What's the matter? I'm getting it from here. I just graphed these 2 points right here. Okay, so the next point I'm going to graph is 1, -1. So 1, I went over to 1, and then I went down 1. And then my last point I'm going to graph is 2, 0. So that's enough points to get me a line, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and extend that line all the way through. It just goes all the way out because we're talking about a linear equation. Okay? Okay, yes, it would be non-proportional. Good job. I'm glad y'all keep remembering that. That's good. Okay? Okay, this one is a little, everybody got this copied? Or I'll wait just a second, let y'all catch up. Okay, this second one is a little bit more confusing in terms of this little number here. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing. Whatever this number is, I've got to input the whole thing. Just because there's already a negative sign doesn't mean it changes anything. Are you with me? So I'm going to input if there's a negative sign, and then I'm going to put my thing in parentheses. Okay? So what's a double negative make? Positive. So if I input that, I'm going to get a 1. So what's my point going to be? -1, 1. Good. Okay. So I'm going to do the next one. -0. Can I have a -0? No. So it's just going to be what? 0. So my point here is going to be 0, 0. Okay. What about 1? I'm going to make -1. So it's going to be what? -1. Which is 1, -1. Okay. And then my last point is 2. So it's going to be -2. So my point will be 2, -2. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to graph all 4 of these points. Okay, so we're going to graph. Everybody ready to graph with me? Yes, Ian?
I'm just confused where we got the numbers from.
They were already given to us right here.
Oh.
So I inserted them into I inserted this number into the formula, the problem, and then it spit out this number. Okay? So we'll do a little bit more work. We're going to do a couple more, so keep thinking on it, okay? So first one, -1, 1. That's my first point. Okay, my second point, 0, 0. My third point, 1, negative 1, and then 2, negative 2. And if I graph that line, it is gonna be proportional. Okay, what's my M and what's my B? Just so I can remember, what's my M? Which is before the X. What's before the X? So what's before the X? Negative 1 over 1. And what's my B? 0. Why is it 0? There's no B, so it goes through 0, 0. That's where it's going to cross that y-axis at, okay? Okay, next page. Oh, sorry. Okay, here's where our homework's going to kind of look like. Now, I'm going to add to it, and I'm going to add to your homework in just a minute, okay? But I want your homework to look like this. I want it to have a chart, okay? So we're going to make our own chart, and I'm going to give you some numbers. They're just some numbers. They're ones I'm giving to you. That's where they're coming from. Somebody said, where do they come from? They're ones I'm giving to you, okay? So we're going to make our own XY chart, okay? And I want on every chart, we're going to do negative 1, 0, 1, 2. Okay? So we're going to input these values into here. So we're going to input negative 1 into there. So if I input negative 1 into this equation, negative 1 minus 5. And that's here's my equation, right? So it would equal negative 6. So if I input negative 1, I output negative 6, right? Gage, are you writing down? Okay. What's my next input? It's going to be 0. So if I input 0, I output what?
5.
Negative 5. Okay. So here it is. If I input 1, what do I output?
5.
No, 1 minus 5 is negative 4. And then if I input 2,
Negative 3.
negative 3.
And those are your points.
So I would graph these points. I would say negative 1, 6, 0, negative 5. Remember, they're going up by 2 right there. 1. Oh my gosh, y'all just let me graph those wrong. You're killing me. There, I graphed the positive side. Negative 1, negative 6. How about that? Right there. And then 0, negative 5. Sorry, guys. 1, negative 4. That's why you do it in pencil. And then 2, negative 3. Okay, so there's my line. I'm going to extend it. It's not proportional. Good job. Yes. Okay, let me get this last one in real quick, and then we'll have answer questions if you need them, okay? So right here is and so I'm going to do that same T-chart. Okay, and I did negative 1, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so I'm still using this equation. Okay. Am I going too fast?
You said they're made.
I said I'm giving them to you. I'm just telling you what we're going to input and output. Okay, so negative 2 times negative 1 plus 6. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2 plus 6 is 8. Okay, so I put this. Remember, I put my X into this, and it's going to spit out my Y, right? Okay, so in case you're confused, negative 2 times 0 plus 6. What's negative 2 times 0? 0 plus 6 is 6. Okay.
You kind of like just minus 2 each time.
I just go through the equation. So I'm doing 2 times this, whatever's happening here, then plus 6. So let's look at the next one. I'd say negative 2 times 1 is what?
2.
Negative 2, right? Plus 6. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. And then last one, negative 2 times 2 plus 6. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4 plus 6 is just positive 2. So then I would graph these. So I would graph these. negative 1.8, 0.6, 1.4, 2.2. Graph those, and I would say it's not proportional. Okay? So let me stop the video and then I'll answer any more questions we have, okay?